Workers repairing a building in Georgia, USA, found about 1,000 human teeth inside a wall. Research revealed the building was constructed in 1900 and first occupied by dentist Clarence Whittington. Thousands of ships were abandoned in San Francisco Bay during the gold rush starting in 1848. Many were later dismantled to build houses. A friendly gift, containing a bugging device hidden in the Great Seal, allowed the USSR to secretly eavesdrop on the United States for many years, starting in 1945. Archduke Franz Ferdinand pictured with the first elephant he killed in British Ceylon, 1893. Segregationists harassed 6-year-old Ruby Bridges by displaying a doll inside a coffin. Aerial bombs designed to be dropped by hand are shown during World War I. Julius Dack is pictured at a Chicago police station in 1906. The criminal had attempted to hide from police by disguising himself as a woman, though he evidently made a mistake. Native Americans are shown tearing down a statue of Christopher Columbus in Mexico, 1994. Slogans such as "Brits go home" and "Malta wants independence" are displayed in 1960. The starving winter of 1944 is depicted, representing a tragedy for the Dutch people. The miraculous survivors who managed to escape from the 87th floor of the World Trade Center in New York on September 11, 2001. In 1945, a French woman has her head shaved bald as punishment for having a relationship with a German. Young women practice their golf swings with the aid of a mechanical training device in 1925. In Kuwait in 1955, a woman is seen carrying a sewing machine on her head, adapting the local method typically used by women in the region to transport water jugs. A depiction of how witnesses testified against the mafia in 1969. The Dance of Loyalty, performed in the PRC in 1967, was a ritualistic dance intended to symbolize the dancers' devotion to the nation's leader, Mao Zedong. Ronaldinho once said, "My father taught me that I needed to learn how to control the ball barefoot to better feel my feet. And I promised him that I would control that ball like no one else. But the truth was, he didn't have enough money to buy me shoes. When I won my first Ballon d'Or, I didn't cry from joy. I cried because I no longer had a father." A view inside a personal locket from the 1940s. Taken in 1961, this photo shows a man adding fuel to his pair of motorized roller skates. Unit 731, described as a conveyor belt of death, was a special unit of the Japanese armed forces that conducted biological weapons research. They experimented on live humans to determine survival times under extreme conditions, like boiling water, dehydration, starvation, frostbite, and electric shock. A divorcing couple divides their assets on a courtroom floor in the USA, 1999. A 1930s health procedure using electric current and water basins to improve circulation, often mistaken for an electric chair. An American cartoon from 1964 depicts Russia and China digging a grave for the USA. A photo showing the result of a bet lost regarding the outcome of the 1948 U.S. presidential election. A scene in New York, 1954. A man is pictured walking to deliver a package in New York on September 11, 2001, unaware of the magnitude of the tragedy unfolding behind him. In 1942, educator Janusz Korczak chose to accompany 200 orphans to the Treblinka gas chamber instead of escaping, saying, "You don't leave a sick child alone, and here there are 200. The Hollywood sign was created in 1923 as advertising for new residential areas in Los Angeles, originally reading Hollywoodland. It was meant to last a year and a half, but was kept due to the booming film industry. A man versus machine moment from 1968 features African runner Matthias Kanda from southern Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, who raced against a steam train during his training sessions and reportedly never lost. A World War I photo from around 1914 in German East Africa shows a military trick used by German General Leto Vorbeck, where the youngest soldier at the end of a line jumps into an elephant's footprint to obscure the tracks. A Jubilee visitor arrives at an American prisoner of war camp on April 20, 1945. This photo, taken in Slovakia in 1966, depicts a carefree old age. Jews arrested following Kristallnacht are brought to the German concentration camp Buchenwald in 1938. A contortionist, or snake man, provides entertainment for his fellow soldiers on the front lines in France 1915. In the 1940s, women were permitted to smoke in maternity wards. Edith Piaf poses with 120 prisoners in Germany, 1944. She used the photo to create fake documents in an underground workshop and later smuggled them back into the camp in a false-bottomed suitcase to help prisoners escape. John Woods, known as Nuremberg's kind hangman, would grab the legs of his victims and hang with them to shorten the suffering of the person dangling in the noose. He died in 1950 from an electric shock while repairing wiring in his own home. Madame Gustika, an Ethiopian woman with traditional lip stretching who was often shown smoking a pipe, became a sideshow act in New York. A Vietnamese child and his father, who was accused of aiding North Vietnamese partisans, were photographed in 1966. A grandmother sees punks for the first time in her life in London, 1982. Pictured is Daddy Longlegs, an underwater electric railway from 1897. During Christmas 1914 and World War I, German and British soldiers on the front line agreed to an unscheduled truce, singing carols, exchanging gifts, and playing football. Sadly, such truces were never successfully arranged again in the later years of the war. A police officer smiles mysteriously while detaining an intoxicated woman on the street. A man who raised a bull and sold it to the arena was recognized by the wounded animal during a fight. The bull ran to him among hundreds of spectators seeking salvation. The man kissed the animal, after which it was killed. Spanish newspapers dubbed this the Kiss of Judas. A cat is captured running across a street during a chaotic street battle in Beirut, Lebanon in the 1980s. A family pictured in the slums of Toronto, 1914. The American serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer once accidentally ingested sleeping pills meant for his intended victim. When he awoke, he discovered that he had been tied up and sexually assaulted with a candle. Staff of the Disney Film Company during their lunch break in 1961. This image displays the horrifying mask belonging to Edward Paynell, the maniac dubbed the Beast of Jersey, which he would put on prior to assaulting his victims in 1957. More than 30,000 German soldiers captured following the Battle of the Falaise Pocket, gathered in a camp near Non-en-le-Pin, France. During a public speech in New York, USA in 1976, U.S. Vice President Nelson Aldrich Rockefeller gestures with his middle finger to a crowd of hippies. An 1865 portrait of Brigham Young, the second president of the Church of Latter-day Saints, founder of Salt Lake City, and first governor of Utah, who fathered 57 children with 56 different wives. A vampire hunting kit from the 19th century. From 1932 to 1945, Japan enslaved over 200,000 Korean women. Ashamed of their past, many survivors chose death or a life of complete solitude rather than returning to normal life. Actor Ron Storm, seen on the right, takes a break in a restroom in the UK in 1970. He was known for playing female roles, and while a man in a dress once shocked audiences, times have certainly changed since then. Within territories occupied by the Nazis, paying homage to Hitler was mandatory for everyone, though this image suggests that not everyone was enthusiastic about it. Zulu King Cetshwayo pictured aboard the ship transporting him to Cape Town following the defeat of the Zulus in 1879. A clock that stopped exactly at 8:15, marking the precise moment of the bombing of Hiroshima. George Moore, known as the Living Skeleton, and Fred Howe, the Fat Man, are pictured here as intermediate actors in the world's funniest boxers in the USA, 1897. Johnny Depp is pictured following his arrest in 1994, which occurred after he destroyed a hotel room during an alleged attempt to kill a cockroach. Captain Khan with a great stingray caught in the USA, 1933. During World War II, Japanese soldiers were recorded using Indian prisoners of war for target practice. A 1995 breakup letter from Tupac to Madonna, written from prison, in which he explains that dating a white woman could harm his reputation with his fans. The inscription, "Germany wins on all fronts," was displayed on the Eiffel Tower during the German occupation of Paris. In Belgium in 1940, these individuals reportedly drank only one glass of beer each. A method of fighting vagrancy in the early 20th century USA, where vagrants were strapped to a chair and left outside for over 10 hours. Children and the weather added to the torment. Afterward, most of them left town. The wives of the Apollo 8 astronauts are captured reacting as they hear their husbands' voices from orbit in 1968. While cities were transitioning to automobiles, this 1915 rural school bus in the USA combined an automotive chassis with horse-drawn power. During the famous 1962 escape from Alcatraz, fake heads made of wax were left in the beds to deceive guards. 3 prisoners escaped the island on a homemade raft, but they were never found, and it is widely believed they drowned in San Francisco Bay. An Inuit man warming his wife's feet in Greenland, 1880s. Turtle racing was an event in the U.S. during the 1920s. Although a turtle's body is not built for such weight and poses a risk of injury, there was a prevalent desire in America to make a show out of absolutely anything. In the late 19th century, French prostitutes used candles as timers. Each candle burned for about 7 minutes, measuring the duration of a session, leading some to consider the girls lazy. Children in West Berlin are pictured building an improvised version of the Berlin Wall in October 1961. A former prisoner sorts through a massive pile of eyeglasses confiscated from inmates at the Auschwitz concentration camp in Poland, 1945. A banquet of disfigured faces held in Paris in 1925, serving as a dinner for French soldiers who had suffered facial disfigurement during World War I. A pie-eating contest held in 1937. Women wearing specialized cloaks designed to protect their clothing and bodies from heavy smog in Philadelphia, USA, 1953. A massive parade of 50,000 Ku Klux Klan members marched through Washington in 1926. A jail photo of Cleo Wright from 1940. 2 years later, a white mob dragged him from his cell and burned him alive for the murder of a police officer and the attempted rape of a woman. A large crowd of children rushes towards a candy store in the UK in 1953, marking the day the government officially ended the rationing of sweets. For days, a woman blocked bulldozers from demolishing her home for a highway. In 1958, sheriffs posing as reporters disarmed her. She received $9,000, but the house was destroyed. A photo from the 1950s illustrating the era when seatbelts were not yet mandatory in racing. U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson is pictured in Washington in 1968, listening to a report from his son-in-law regarding the true situation on the ground in Vietnam. In the early 60s, a mugger in Los Angeles targeted elderly women. The police set a trap by dressing officers as grandmothers to patrol the streets. The plan worked, and the criminal was quickly caught. A rally demanding the legalization of abortion takes place in Italy, 1975. Waitress Ruth Lee, born in America, sunbathing on a beach alongside a Chinese flag in 1941. She did this to avoid being mistaken for Japanese during the anti-Japanese hysteria that swept the U.S. after Pearl Harbor. Alfred Greb, a pioneer of the automobile radio, had to install a large antenna shaped like a clothes dryer on the car's bumpers around 1919. In Afghanistan in 1996, the Taliban used a tank to crush alcohol seized during the capture of Kabul. A protest against the Vietnam War in Italy, 1970. In the 1940s, a soldier's knees buckle with excitement when the popular actress Linda Darnell invites him to dance. The winner of the Miss Nairobi Beauty Contest in Kenya, 1966. Titanic survivors Marjorie and Charlotte Collier in New York, 1912. Teresa Adwintowska, a war-traumatized child from Warsaw, is pictured in 1948 at a residence for disturbed children, drawing her chaotic representation of home on a blackboard. A 1945 photo features 12 Soviet snipers who were credited with shooting 775 German soldiers during World War II. A horrifying discovery made in 1930 revealed a device containing a skull that followed the contours of a human body. This apparatus was used to execute bandits, pirates, and murderers by hanging them on display until they perished. A plane crash in the United Kingdom in 1960 that was described as perfect because nobody died. A photograph showing a few survivors of the Titanic disaster in the USA, May 1912. Mark Twain demonstrates an experiment involving high-frequency current passing through the human body to light an incandescent bulb with a mischievous Nikola Tesla standing at the light switch in 1895. A vendor selling sponges in Austria-Hungary, 1904. Jewish refugees aboard the ocean liner St. Louis traveled back to Europe after being refused entry by Cuba, the United States, and Canada in 1939. Whether it brought joy or a bit of frustration, I'd love to hear your take in the comments. Get ready for the next chapter. Please hit like and subscribe to stay updated. See you later.